Welcome, Roman, to the podcast again. I'm calling from Ukraine. You're in the States. We tried to do a talk a bit earlier, but I had a power cut, and so we managed to sync up again. How's it going, my friend?
Well, it's going well. I'm really sad to hear that, you literally have to adjust your schedule based on the availability of electricity, something that we in the West don't really get to even appreciate. We just take it for granted. And today in Ukraine, half of Ukraine, if not the entire country, is in a blackouts, constant blackouts. So you literally live by these dosages of electricity. So I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm really glad to be back here.
Yeah, there's a lot of generators. It's really noisy down there. You can smell the diesel burning or the petrol, whatever they're using. Every few shops, every groceries have their generators that comes out like clockwork. Some of the bigger places, like a gym or something, they'll have like a van-sized generator, and it sounds like a tractor.
Wow. Yeah, no, my parents have a generator. They also have this sort of electric battery that accumulates electricity. So when things sort of go black, they usually either turn on the generator or they will use the electric battery for some time. But again, when half of the time you have no electricity, it becomes sort of difficult to manage.
It's like filling up a water bottle.
Exactly.
When electricity's on, you're charging up all your devices and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's all right. So Russia apparently is mobilizing all of its economy or a large part of its economy for military use, and their GDP is up, and the ruble's doing great. So why is Putin spending time at his own personal risk in a very unstable country like North Korea?
Well, let me first question the first two things that you said. So the ruble is up. I mean, it's actually not up. It's there is no market for ruble. So the ruble is whatever Russia has decided it to be, right? So they don't have a market. You cannot buy ruble to you cannot buy USD. You cannot buy US dollar or euro in Russia, and so the ruble artificially is inflated to whatever level they want to. But if you were to use ruble to trade with any other country, nobody wants your ruble. So if the market were to be open up, the ruble would crash immediately. So basically, ruble is not stable. It is artificially held by Kremlin. The GDP is up. That's true, but there is a reason for that. Russia has pretty much depleted its all the reserves that they had. So they had these federal reserves. Some of them have been frozen. That's part, but then there's been other reserves that have been already um, in place, and more than half of it has been depleted. So this is something that you cannot replenish quickly. Russia has been preparing for this war, so these reserves have been substantial. But the point is that the fact that you get a GDP growth, it's not because of these sort of productive sectors or new factories being opened up, this and that. It's just that it's been redirected in one particular military sort of economy, and it's been completely subsidized by the government, the subsidy that is running dry. So, I mean, anybody can do that, right? That kind of GDP growth. It's not driven by the foreign direct investment or any kind of investment. It's not driven by any sort of growth strategy that any reasonable country would want to see. So basically, it's all artificial. So there's that. And now, going next to your next point about North Korea, that's right. So Russia is in a pickle. Putin is has used tremendous resources on a war in Ukraine, and he is not winning. He's not winning. I mean, it's of course it's difficult to say that Ukraine is winning because of the losses and everything of that is happening in Ukraine. But at the same time, obviously Putin is not winning. His special military operation from 3 days turned into now getting to the 3 years, and even the some advances that Russia is making these days are just so marginal. I mean, Ukraine is a huge country, and these gains are incredibly marginal at incredible cost for Kremlin. So basically, Putin is losing objectively. He is losing, and he needs allies. He needs support. He cannot, given that finally American aid has started to flow into Ukraine, and so the front lines become more and more problematic for him. he needs help, and nobody was willing to help him. He tried that with China. So China is one of the sort of allies, but China has, let's say, certain restrictions placed by the West, because China is very heavily dependent on the West. So China cannot just go and do whatever they want, because they know that the repercussions will follow. And unlike Russia, China is very dependent on the West, especially when it comes to the foreign trade and stuff like that. We buy most of the stuff from China. So now Putin has switched the gears and went to North Korea. I mean, North Korea is already been under sanctions. It's, isolated. There is nothing you can basically punish them any way more. So North Korea is happy to oblige. They're happy to supply weapons. They're happy to supply whatever is needed for Russia. I mean, they don't have anything else but weapons, but still, that's something that they can do. And so the Russian Tsar went to North Korea. As simple as that.
What do you think the possibility of something going wrong, some kind of crazy assassin over there? Because it just seems like he's very vulnerable right there. He can't really you can't travel over with a bunch of tanks and planes and stuff.
Right,
He only really
right.
has a few bodyguards. Something could happen there to him.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he is definitely more vulnerable, which demonstrates his how desperate he is. Right, the fact that he has an international warrant on his arrest, and that he is traveling to the country that he has very little control over, and that is showing that he's has a certain level of desperation. But at the same time, saying that North Korea is a dictatorship, it's very well controlled. Sort of the crowds are controlled. There is no freedom, freedom of speech or stuff like that. So literally, you have very little risk from that side. And it's not that easy. It wouldn't be that easy for any assassin to sort of sneak into North Korea, because they do have a lot of precaution measures for Kim Jong Un. So he's obviously also paranoid. He's been, to stay a dictator, you need to put some precautionary measures, and so those precautionary measures work for Putin as well. So on the one hand, it shows the desperation. On the other hand, it's not such a big risk for him, given that it is North Korea and not, let's say, South Korea.
Right. So so let's talk about this peace summit. Do you think that it was just a big waste of time since like China and Russia weren't there?
Well, let's get back to that. Um, just I'm gonna give you my prognosis here. So Russia still has some assets, significant assets. They have significant trade balance. Still have significant trade balance with India. It's literally it went five times up, basically in the past 2.5 years. With China, it's up. With Kazakhstan, it's up. So the sanctions, they're able to circumvent them in certain ways. At the same time, it's definitely um, the oil, gas, all of that stuff is shrinking in terms of permanent supply. And this is something very important to understand, that these sanctions that have been placed on Russia by the West, they are playing a huge role, but they are playing a long-term role, right? So Russia is crippling, and it's going to take time for it to happen. The Federal reserves of Russia are sinking, so they're really depleting. There is not enough capacity to restore the, let's say, things like armored vehicles. So Russia has the only reason Russia still had sort of an advantage in this area, because they had huge storages. They were preparing for this war, and but these storages are not refilling. The money is not coming in. So I mean, I've seen many prognoses and expectations about the sort of Russian resiliency, and all the prognoses come in basically saying maybe another year, maybe another year and a half. and Russia will really start crippling down. So now it also depends how we what are going to be the follow-up sanctions. So, for example, the recent sanctions that U.S. has imposed on Russia have been actually very significant. I mean, not many Western media have covered this, but those sanctions have been, they really hit the Russian market. I mean, they still have whatever market has been left, and it's been crumbling literally. And the reason is those sanctions really sort of try to um, stop this circumventing or sort of the way that Russia is trying to avoid sanctions. And so the European Union is right now working on the sanction package right now. Unfortunately, Germany is blocking again. The Germany is blocking because the sanctions are that are the European Union, I believe it's 14th package that they are trying to put in. They will block a certain trade of goods that are sort of humanitarian goods, not that could be used for military purposes. But you know how the economy works. The German companies, they stay, or well, not only German, but in this case, this is but American companies. Pepsi Cola is still there to a certain extent, and so they pay tremendous amount of taxes. They obviously can they produce products that Russia would have to produce themselves. And so Russia doesn't have to produce those products. So now they can use their capacity to produce military and just buy products from these other companies. So, yeah, and even though these are humanitarian sort of products, they are fueling the Russian economy and the Russian war machine. So if these sanctions are in place, if European Union does pass this, we can really speed up the crumbling and sort of the solution of this Russian resiliency. And so I hope that this is going to happen within the next year. So that's my sort of economic overview of how things are going and where they're going to go in the next year or year and a half.
It's almost as if Russia had all the stock and they expected no one to form enough resistance so that all their stock, military stock, would be
That's
worn
correct.
down. And
That's
at some
correct.
point, they'll have to manufacture that stuff from scratch.
Exactly. And they will take again, and this is why when we talk about these talks about peace, why it's so fragile. So we tried the peace talks, right? We tried, I mean, Russia has been doing this for 2 decades. They've done this in Georgia, they've done it in Chechnya, in Moldova, in basically Abkhazia. So they've done this in many places, and in Ukraine, they annexed Crimea, then they took some break in order to build strength, and then they attacked. And so now, let's say we have a peace talks, and let's say there is some ceasefire. Well, how long will it last? Well, I'll tell you. As long as Russia needs to rebuild its army and its capacity, build its stocks, and then it's going to start again. There's nothing that will stop Russia. I mean, I just recently posted this both on LinkedIn and Twitter. This quote from the Russia Today, that literally one day before the invasion, they're saying this is ridiculous that the West is saying that Russia is going to go attack Ukraine.
Yeah, I saw that.
Putin himself goes out and says we will never attack Ukraine. People who are saying this are crazy, and the next day they all attack. So the point is that there is no way that anybody can trust this, and given the history, Russia will only use this to rebuff, and the only way to stop them is really to diminish their military capacity and show them that the West is very strong with Ukraine, and they will do whatever it takes to defend the democracy, freedom, independence, sovereignty of Ukraine. And only this way there will be enough result that Putin will say, okay, I cannot win this. I cannot win this, so I have to back down. Otherwise, my country will dissolve into nothing. And so that has to happen. Only that's the only way, the only reasonable way for lasting peace is to arm Ukraine with everything we have, not with the scraps that we've been doing so far. Just stop playing the games and make sure that Russia is decisively defeated in this war.
You think it's possible to put more pressure on China and India by, say, starting to move more of our economies' manufacturing bases away from them?
Yeah, so this has already been done. So as I said, we already tried this. The last sanction package that the United States has imposed includes some Chinese companies. So they are specifically targeting Chinese companies, and China is not happy about it. But at the same time, it makes them think twice before they do anything sort of visibly stupid, right? They can do some things here and there. There's some containers that can get in unnoticed into Russia, but on a big scale, the big for example, China still cannot send big military vehicles. China has a lot of them, right? They cannot do planes and other things. The even artillery shells there's going to be problematic because there is spies on both sides, and we will know this. But China, and so these sort of signals, they're preventing China from further doing these sort of things, and I think that will be that was a very strong signal by United States. The same signal has to be sent from the European Union. And if China doesn't react in the proper way, then we up the notch those sanctions. And I think that unlike, let's say, North Korea or Iran, China is very dependent on the trade with West. So they cannot afford sort of stopping preventing their goods going to those markets, and the Chinese economy is slowing down. I mean, it's growing fast, but the rate of growth is slowing down, and so as a result, China is really kind of they understand the value of the West, even though they may not show it all the time. But the reality is they need the United States, they need the European Union, and if there is enough pressure, I think that they will reconsider significantly what they can do and what they cannot do for Russia.
Say we cut Chinese trade by half, that would make everything more expensive for us, but it'd
That's correct.
also boost our local industries. So, do you think at some point the pros for us in the West would be greater than the cons?
Well, so here's the thing. This problem has risen during COVID, right? So during COVID, we realized that look, it's not good that China or some other countries can control production of basically some of the basic necessities, because if God forbid another COVID or something like this happens, I mean, maybe even on a greater magnitude, even something more serious than that, then we are screwed because we close the borders and we cannot sustain, the production. I mean, silly thing, even toilet paper. Remember how the whole thing was with the United States. So that has risen this awareness that even though globalization comes with a lot of benefits, it also comes with a lot of cost. We need to have significant local industry. We need to have sort of within our borders significant manufacturing and stuff like that. And so the trend has already started then, right? In 2020, 21, where a lot of local companies in the United States, in the European Union, sort of started producing things that they would produce only in China. Now, of course, China still has the bulk of the production capabilities, but the trend has already been sort of manufacturing on locally. Um, Now, the war with Russia is showing this even more so. This need to manufacture locally, especially also the military equipment, because there is just no. Imagine if you are in war with China. I mean, they're not going to give you, and you producing some equipment or some lenses or some, rotors or whatever it is for drones and stuff like that, and they're coming from China. I mean, all of that stops immediately. So there is just no way to do that. So I'm just pointing out that the trend is already that direction. And now you're saying, well, what if we put significant sanctions and we start moving some other products, that are maybe not necessity, but plastic stuff, right? I mean, what we use, here's the Apple. I mean, this thing, the interior, the software, all of that can be done, it can done in US, and the plastic we can also manufacture in the US. Why not? This is already robot based most of the time, so we can just build enough robots, put it in the United States, and do the manufacturing in the US. So I do think that the trend is going that direction. But can we do it quickly? I'll tell you, no, absolutely not. It's just not gonna be a quick fix. Uh, your argument, can the benefit outweigh the costs? In the long run, yes, but we are talking about very long run. So if we were to stop, let's say, as you said, trade with China, even quarter, not even talking about the half, quarter, this will significantly hit us. It will significantly hit China, but it will also significantly hit us. So unfortunately, right now at this stage, it's going to be a lose-lose for both sides. And so, what I do believe, it's the incremental sort of reactions that we should be making, not sort of these gigantic steps. Although, let me just give you one example. Recently, U.S. has put a tariff of about 100% on electric automobiles from China. So 100%. Imagine you have to you have to produce something that you will pay a tax which is 100%. So double of that you will pay to United States if you want to sell a vehicle, electric vehicle from China in US. So that's a significant tariff. But the thing is, that tariff is not on the product that is already in the US. It's a tariff to prevent China of entering US market, right? So and it's not as painful. It's not as painful because the product has not been yet there. On the other hand, if we talk about products that are already there, and we don't have anything to replace them with, we put these tariffs, we don't have the capacity to produce them, it will hit us. So I don't see that as a short-term solution, and by short-term I mean like even within the next 5 years. But talking about 10 years plus, yes, it's possible, and that should be moving in that direction.
I keep pinging and trying to talk to Amazon to put a Chinese filter on the products, but they seem very reluctant to do that. So Amazon is really in the pockets of the CCP.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. It is. I've been trying to distance myself from Chinese products as well, and it's almost impossible to do. Everything that I look, every store that I go, will always see made in China, and that's an unfortunate trend. I mean, we have outsourced. We try to. This is the side effect of globalization. Overall, I'm pro globalization. I'm fine with a modest level of globalization. I think it's a good thing that we're doing, specializing, do our thing. But when you get to the extreme, when you basically have somebody like China basically using that to such an extent to their advantage and literally monopolizing manufacturing world, that becomes a huge problem. So this is when I mean anything in moderation is fine, right? I mean, this is even the biblical principle, that's something that Solomon, the famous king of Israel, was teaching, is that, like, you never want to go to the extremes. You never want to go to the extremes, left, right. And I'm not even talking about political spectrum. I'm just talking extremes in almost everything. And so I think that the lesson is, there should be a balance. There should be a balance. And we unfortunately broke that balance, and China has reaped the benefit of that.
It's interesting that Christian Putin is going to a country like North Korea, where it has some of the worst track record of Christian tortures and executions. It just seems like antimatter connecting here. It's just
Well, let's just, again, sorry for questioning some of the things that you say, but to say that Putin is Christian is to say nothing, right? Because the Christianity at its core is based on the teachings of Jesus Christ, right? And to love your neighbor, to, I mean, even to love your enemy to an extent, right? I mean, if you take it right into context. But the point is that whatever Putin is doing is a work of Antichrist, not Christ, right? And the way that I view Russian Christianity, quote unquote Christianity, because I don't view it as a real Christianity. It's the Antichrist, it's a substitute, it's the fake version of it. It's basically a Muslim version of ISIS, we know that there is more reasonable Muslims, and there is these radical terrorists and this and that. And so this is the Russian Orthodox Church is the terrorist of the Christianity. So it's not a real Christianity. For me, Russia has never been a real Christian country. It's been sort of this integration of KGB. Religion is used as the form of influence and control of people. While in the West, especially in America, when you look at the Protestant church is used as the way of sort of freedom, independence, the basically the separation of church and the government. The idea is that the church is a voice in its own. In Russia, the church is the puppet, a vehicle to control people. So again, I think that they're gonna feel really comfortable, both Kim Jong Un and Putin, because they literally come from exactly the same this exactly the same sort of philosophy of life. The Christianity, quote unquote, is just a cover.
All right, Roman. Thanks so much for coming on today again. And what can we look forward to seeing next in your life?
Oh, this is a good question. So basically, right now I am still I'm still a founding rector of American University Kyiv. So I'm working with American University Kyiv, quite you know um, not as involved, but I'm still fairly involved because I sort of had the 2 year when I was in Ukraine and I was opening this university. Now I my leave of absence have expired, so I'm back in the US, but I'm still working with American University Kyiv. I'm heading the Ukrainian American House, which is an NGO that we help to uh, basically rebuild and aid Ukraine. I am working with Save Ukraine. I'm a board member of Save Ukraine, bringing captive Ukrainian children from Russia to Ukraine. And I really hope that I will get involved more with the rebuilding effort of Ukraine. So I'm right now on couple boards and working with different international players, figuring out how we're going to do it, how we're going to help Ukraine stand up, get out of this, and really show the rest of the world what can be done in order for Ukraine to not just rebuild but thrive, to really become an equal part of the European Union, to become an example of what we can do, unite together as the world, even in the country that has been torn by war. And I think this is our obligation as a West, because Ukraine is not just defending itself, but Ukraine is also defending the freedoms and democracy of the entire Western world. So I think this is incredibly important that we do everything we can to help Ukraine win right now and to rebuild Ukraine once the war is over.
That'll make some very interesting podcasts on how you would build something like cities from the ground up with all the latest technologies and machines, and even just how to purify the soil from all the blown up ordnances and stuff like that. So exciting times for Ukraine once the victory happens.
Yes.
Thanks very
Yes.
much, my friend.
Well, thank you, Nikos.
Talk soon.